Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Porcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Up now as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
To go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out and away we go for the very first time here at Oklahoma International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Kimball Cup Series here at the Old Bastards Racing League. My name is Gareth McAllister, and we are joining you from the booth with Team Goon Squad Broadcasting, bringing you the action 1080p and 60 frames per second, if my good old Aussie internet can allow me to do so. We are bringing you the action here tonight from Sonoma Raceway out here in the hot deserts of California, and we are looking pretty good to go racing very, very soon in short order, as we are currently watching qualifying get done and underway. As right now you can see last week's winner Josh Robinson right there cutting the corner nicely for the hairpin into that final corner with the straightaway onto the front stretch with the start finish line, and he's gonna put in a nice time there. It looks like gonna be a 1:16.9, so not quite fast enough to catch up to Mike Watts or Dwayne MacArthur sitting in the top two spots, but he's gonna try again and looking pretty good to go so far. This track has a whole lot of changes in elevation and a lot of blind corners. Going to make it very, very difficult to navigate this one, as Robinson proving that point just then, getting too much on the curb and getting sent straight into that inside wall. Very unfortunate for him. Take a quick look at Wayne Hufford. He's getting ready to click off a lap here tonight. The number 75 machine. It looks like we're going to have around about exactly 40 laps of a nice old Cup historic layout from the looks of things. As Wayne Hufford tries a little bit of an alternative line. Bit of a kiss in the wall there. Glad we got that one on camera. He certainly won't be, as Wanamaker follows suit in a different aspect. As we're going to now look at Brian McRubbin and see if he can keep it out on track. We have heard from a lot of these drivers just before the show that it's going to be very, very dicey, a very hot, slick track, and not a whole lot of wear in these tires, especially early on. Not a whole lot of grip to go off of. And McRubbin's just enjoying life right now, I believe, as he's the only car on track, and we get ready to finish up qualifying in a few seconds here. We're joined by Dave Brown, Dustin Martinson, Jeremy Mayo, Pac-Man CT, Michael Dow, and James Waldo, all showing their support in the broadcast side of things. So very much appreciative in the spectator area as we get ready to run down the grid for you tonight. Starting on pole, Michael Watts does have a bit of an EOL to start this race though. So he will actually be starting at the end of the lead pack right now. So Dwayne MacArthur will take over the top spot, but for now, he is lining up in the second position. Joshua Robinson going to be in the third spot with Dan Hill beside him on the second row. Darrell Winiger and Courtney Nelson in our third row. Tom Ogle with Cameron Shosey, I say it right for the first time, in our 4th row. John Hinchcliffe and Greg McDaniel in our 5th row. Chris Bates and Wayne Hufford rounding out our 6th row. Cycling it on back to the 5th row, the two Bryans once again, Brian Lynch and Brian Lindsay, going to be starting right neck and neck, with Alan Wanamaker and Dean Gear going to be starting in the 15th and 16th positions. Jonathan Thea, our triple number driver, coming out for maybe not the first time, but I believe the first time that I've been calling a race, as I did miss last week. So he's going to show us what he can do, the Texas native, against Kermit Gentry Jr. in that 18th place position. Dale Copeland and Lloyd Moore rounding out our top 10 rows for the moment, as we are going to keep cycling through our grid. As Jim Smith, it looks like, is going to be in our 11th row alongside Brian McRubbin, the Duff Machine. Lee Warsdale and Robert Crisco Garisco are going to be in 23rd and 24th. John Hastings with Bruce Pearson in our 25th and 26th positions, with Mark Schrader and Troy Baker making up our 14th row. Mark Fish and Daniel Edgren will be at the back of the pack, rounding out our 15-row grid here tonight. 30 next-gen vehicles, and it's going to be quite a doozy, let me tell you of that, as we get ready to rock and roll here at Sonoma in good old California. See just how stacked this field is as they are way out into the back. You can see all the way back there. They just keep coming. The field is absolutely stacked here tonight. And we are going to bear witness to something
Alright guys, we're going to go on this
amazing.
first lap. Remember, tighten it up, second gear, so change lanes, so start finish line. Go on green. Take care of your shit, guys.
As we had just something super quick there. Apologies for that one. As I was keyed into the driver radios. And as we try and learn a little bit more before in our practice runs. And we just kept that on a little bit too long, I believe, there just before we got to green. But we're going to have 45 laps, so we should be seeing a green flag pit stop as well just towards the end of this one. Be interesting if someone decides to try and make it on strategy. Can it be done? We're gonna have to wait and see, as it does look like it could be done, but it will be very, very close indeed to the bottom of the tank. Wayne MacArthur getting ready to send us off as we go into the final hairpin. Can cut that corner almost entirely as long as you do not hit those tires. Side there as the pace car is down pit road. Very tricky pit road as well. And we're going green. We've sent them off here at Sonoma. Here we go. Dwayne MacArthur out in front, getting a nice jump in front of Josh Robinson just behind. We're going to have to watch this pack heading up into turn one. A blindsided corner. And the braking zone is very early on, as we're going to have to get ready to watch. It looks like everyone's got through cleanly, though, as Greg McDaniel and John Hinchcliffe has just exchanged positions in the eighth place spot. As McDaniel there, we can see he's also up in the he's in the eighth place spot, as we just talked about. We saw someone go for a little bit of a spin or potential lockup there. Not sure exactly who that was. It looks like it was Kermit Gentry Jr. We're going to lock that one up for you as quick as we can. And it looks like he may have actually started from pit road here. So maybe just a little bit of an issue for him. Yes, he goes for a little bit of a spin further back in the pack. But we keep going in the right direction for the moment, as Darrell Winiger looks to have just been overtaken by Tom Ogle for the 5th place position now. This driver's absolutely on the ragged edge right now. These drivers very, very close together indeed as we cycle it on back just a little bit. Lee Warsdale is looking to do something just behind Jim Smith here in the number 114. Also with Jonathan Thea being our triple number drivers coming out tonight. It should be interesting. You've seen a lot of curb hop there from Lee Warsdale heading up to the highest point on the circuit. And really, this track, Sonoma, a fantastic one to watch. Always very, very enjoyable. As you can see, all these drivers doing a fantastic job, really not pushing too hard now. As you can see, Chris Bates has got right on the back bumper of him, Wayne Hufford there. And Hufford is going to make a move to the inside. He's going to actually make that dive bomb into the final hairpin. Makes it done fairly cleanly. It looks like just behind them, Brian Lindsay was caught up in the wall. Lloyd Moore almost involved in that one as well. Thankfully, those two drivers continuing ahead as if not too much happened. We're getting a report that Alan Wanamaker may have crashed a little bit earlier on. So we're going to have a quick look at that one as well. As it looks like another solo car incident. These drivers just having a little bit of difficulty. Oh yeah, chose his braking marker way too late. John Hinchcliffe, as we've just seen, has gone off track as well. So he's having his own issues. As we are getting ready to queue up the replay button, there is John Hinchcliffe's incident, and we have Dean Gear as well with what appears to be a full-on crash. Possibly switching through a little bit of the 92 machine. Oh, and he's taken a short line. That is a huge bump coming back on a circuit, just barely avoiding Pearson. And thankfully, nothing involved too untoward there. It looks like he was able to get back on track without too much of a worry. Josh Robinson setting the fastest lap of the race so far, just beaten out by Courtney Nelson in the 4th place spot, a 1:17.5 exactly. So that number 30 car in the 4th position, currently up 2 spots, doing a fantastic job of making his presence known. James Waldo saying that the car looks like it has absolutely no grip, and you would be correct. These drivers very much complaining about how little grip there is at Sonoma in these next-gen Cup cars, especially on cold tyres. There's a little bit of warmth that have just started seeping into these tyre compounds at this moment, being that we've run almost about 5 laps here at Sonoma, but even still, with the conditions that these drivers are currently racing in, it's very, very difficult to have any sort of grip underneath you. Looks like Courtney Nelson is doing a great job catching up to Dan Hill. See, that's a beautiful shot there as Dwayne MacArthur leads this front pack of 5. Tom Ogle trailing at the back of this group. You can see there on the side of your screen, the left side, you can see a better example of where your favorite driver may be handling right themselves right now, as well as who they are currently in a battle with and how close they are. As speaking of battles, it looks like Courtney Nelson is going to show us one. Almost makes the move on Dan Hill. Dan Hill goes very, very wide. You are allowed to push that wide in that corner, taking as much curb as necessary. There is no real preferred line on the exit as we head down to the S's. It's a very tricky sort of place on track. Courtney Nelson seems to have figured it out pretty well, though, as he closes up to Dan Hill just a little bit more. These two drivers fighting for that 3rd place spot right now, but they cannot be too calm in the driver's seat. And another battle happening further back. Jonathan Thea is right behind Brian Lynch, who is not too far behind Chris Bates either. As Brian Lynch dives a little bit in, I believe, trying to look like he was going to take away any potential dive bomb that Jonathan Thier had. And Thier coming in a little bit later with the Google-backed machine. Very nice livery on that one, I might add, on that 116 machine. And the battle is getting closer up front, not only with Dan Hill and Courtney Nelson, but Dwayne MacArthur and Josh Robinson as well. These drivers getting very, very close together. Going to ride on board the roll bar. That is a great idea. Of Tom Ogle for a lap, and we will just see what it's like going around Sonoma in this very, very difficult, very hilly circuit in California. So you can see there just how much coasting these drivers have to do. I'm not sure, I tried to turn the volume up, I think it wasn't quite loud enough, but I'm not sure if you can hear just how heavy and far off they were on off throttle, as Brian Lindsay has just been overtaken by this lead group now. And you can see just how close all of these drivers are as they work their way through the S's right now. Not the best of camera work, I must say, as the roll bar's a little bit in the way of that one. But Ogle definitely closing the gap on Courtney Nelson, as Courtney also closes the gap on Dan Hill, and this battle for the lead continues to grow. Jonathan Thier trying again on Brian Lynch a little bit further back. This is still for the 12th place position that we saw earlier. Both these drivers diving it a little bit too hard. Speaking of, there goes Brian Lynch, diving it way too hard. Thier tries to take advantage, gets a little bit loose on exit. Lloyd Moore almost able to make his way through as well. These drivers coming very, very close to getting a little bit of a bump and grind with one another. Chris Bates blocking heavily, you can see, coming up into turn one in front of Brian Lynch. Brian's not going to be happy to see that. He's got all sorts of pressure from Jonathan Thier just behind. And Lloyd Moore is just sitting back there lurking like a shark waiting to pounce. And we have a pass that's just occurred on track. Greg McDaniel goes for a little bit of a spin. We'll have to queue up what exactly happened there, but he has lost a spot. As we're showing, Greg McDaniel just went off track just for a brief moment. Passing lap traffic, the 65, and no, lap traffic not involved at all, just a little bit loose on exit, getting the power down too quick. We also had a report that Brian Lindsay, once again, having issues. That 24 machine is really, really struggling out here on the road course tonight. And let's have a look as Brian Lindsay, we saw that on the onboard. Brian Lindsay just went wide, and that probably triggered our crash software, as it looks like he was able to get going without too much of a problem. As you could see, Gentry Jr. just making his way through that one. And there is Gentry Jr. once again. Definitely the road course showing its true colors here, as some of these drivers really struggling to get down as much as they want. A little bit of a lock up there from one of those drivers. I believe that may have been Brian Lynch, as Lloyd Moore tries to use that lap car as a pick. Gentry Jr. goes around. Chris Bates gets taken around with him. Ryan Lindsay went wide to allow these drivers through, and all sorts of mayhem unfolded. So Chris Bates immediately taken out of the top 10. Absolute heartbreak for that young driver. I say young with these drivers being a minimum age of 35. Definitely young at heart. Absolutely right. Should have been paying more attention to that. Thank you, Jeremy Mayo, for giving me exactly what I was supposed to be talking about, as Michael Watts has made his way through to the 6th position. Now, this driver in the 84 machine did start, or did qualify on pole, but did have to go back to the end of the lead lap due to an EOL penalty being assigned to him for an earlier incident in races past. But the 84 machine is making his way up solidly, and the only driver so far to have cracked 1:16. Every other driver 1:17, and the absolute beast that is Michael Watts clicking off a 1:16.7. So he is absolutely flying right now to try and catch up to Tom Ogle in the 5th position. Getting a little bit of a looks like Tokyo drifting there into the hairpin. I wouldn't have recommended that be the fastest way around, but that is why I'm up here in the booth and he's down on track clicking off fast lap times. And we'll see, yeah, that lap time a little bit slower than he would like to see. About a second slower than last time by. He is going to be absolutely on a mission, is Michael Watts, to make up that time that he lost just there. As our closest battle on track right now, Dwayne MacArthur just in front of it with Josh Robinson and Dan Hill. Courtney Nelson and Ogle still looking on just behind. A little bit of a gap has formed. As we're right on board the nose of Dan Hill right now, you can just see the undulations in this track. And I know some people say, well, it's only desert. I still think it's a very, very pretty racetrack, regardless of whether it's just sand or foliage out there. And it looks like Dwayne MacArthur may have got a little bit wide, opening the door for Josh Robinson to get very, very close indeed, as Dan Hill falls a little bit further back right now. And lap traffic could come into play once again. You can see Dan Hill just closing the gap so much coming into turn 1 and into these braking zones, looking like he has a little bit more confidence than these two in front of him in terms of braking the car. And Wanamaker has to get out of the way as the leaders are coming through. A big pack on a big mission. Ogle goes very, very wide, taking all that curb on the exit there. These 5 drivers definitely a class of their own right now. Michael Watts setting a brand new fastest lap of the race, a 1:16.6, an entire 10th faster than what he got as his last fastest lap 2 laps ago. With clean room ahead of him, we shall really see just what he is capable of, as Dwayne MacArthur continues to hold on to the top spot. Jeremy Mayer, you are absolutely correct. There is only going to be one stop for fuel and or tyres, but we shall see. We've heard from some of these drivers, and looking at the temps ourselves, we don't believe that there's going to be too much fall off in these cars right now. In terms of tyre wear, in terms of fuel, it's going to be very, very close indeed. I don't think I have an exact number for you, unfortunately, but it's going to be very, very close. These drivers, I believe, can go around 40 laps or so without a fuel stop. And we've got 45 in the race, so it's going to be very close. We have been proven wrong before with the likes of Michael Watts and Josh Robinson, both sitting there in the top 6 positions. They know how to save fuel, including Tom Ogle, no stranger to that either. And these drivers will be saving it if need be. to make it to the end on one stop. You lose so much time going down pit road here. And speaking of, if someone comes out of pit road, you better watch out, because that pit exit is right on the racing line of where these drivers will be heading up into the fast turn of turn 1. And it is a very difficult situation to be in. As you can see, pit exit there right in front of where these drivers cross over. Wayne MacArthur still trying to hold off Josh Robinson, as Dan Hill, Courtney Nelson and Ogle continue to follow through. Michael Watts still setting off the fastest laps of the race. He has closed that gap in the last 2 laps, about 3 seconds. So he is absolutely on a mission right now, tearing his way through the field and seeming to make it look easy. As you can see, there is... See if we can get a good camera of the distance between Michael Watts and the cars in front. They're coming down the S's right now. To the final S as we head towards there. You can see the fastest cars on track right there. The top 5, and Michael Watts is making those moves and getting up there as quick as possible. As you can see, the final hairpin, there they go. And Kermit Gentry Jr. looks like is coming down pit road very early on. Perhaps deciding he's struggling a little bit too much, and a 2-stop strategy for tyres may be necessary in order for him to have enough grip underneath him. As we go back in the field a little bit, it looks like Jim Smith has caught up to Troy Baker. This is for the 18th spot. Little bit of a lockup from one of these drivers. I believe that might have been Mark Schrader just in front of Troy. That Nationwide Express machine doing a pretty good job here tonight. Up 10 spots from where he started in the 17th spot right now. So doing a very, very good job. As it must be said, sharing that top mover spot with Troy Baker just behind. And Robert Garisco has actually just moved up into the 13th position. Almost goes a little bit wide. Somehow manages to stop it in time. Fantastic job from him as Lee Warsdale has fell that spot away. And Tom Ogle coming down pit road. So that is interesting. Tom Ogle deciding that it is going to be a 2-stop race. Very interesting strategy call from Tom Ogle. Clearly wanting to do something different and see what can happen. As Michael Watts continues to reel in these leaders. He is right on the back of them right now. You can see Pearson on the inside there giving way to these drivers coming through. And here comes Mike Watts. Not using as much of the track as Courtney Nelson just ahead, interestingly enough. It seems like it's working for him as he's definitely caught this pack. See just what the closing speed is looking like. Right on board the back bumper of Courtney Nelson. See there under braking. Mike Watts just seems to gain quite a bit of time. Oh, an absolutely beautiful corner from Mike Watts, taking all of the available space on track, but not quite getting the run as he had to check up a little bit. Josh Robinson also coming down pit road early. As you can see there, Mike Watts trying something different. It looks like Troy Baker that was going way out wide. Just trying to let these drivers by, but not sure where to do it. And here we go. Courtney Nelson with Mike Watts right behind. Wayne MacArthur has built up a tiny gap to Dan Hill, not as much as I actually initially thought as I started my sentence, but I will say that Mike Watts is coming with a full head of steam, and it's interesting to see these drivers pit stop right now. It looks like that is Thea leaving the door open, letting these drivers go through. Courtney Nelson goes very, very wide. Mike Watts is going to say, thank you, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. So he's going to take that spot away. The 84 machine, absolutely phenomenal drive from him so far today. Through the entire field in 18 laps, only has Dan Hill and Dwayne MacArthur to go. As you can see, Chris Bates pulls off to the side there, letting the leaders by. Great respect shown here at the OBRL Kimball Cup Series. These old bastards certainly know how to race. As you can see, a little bit of a lock-up right in front of the leaders. As that machine goes out wide, and I believe that is Mark Schrader. I believe I called Jonathan Thea earlier on. It was actually Jim Smith that the leaders were passing. So apologies for that one. A little bit of a mistake on my part. As Mike Watts now right on the back bumper of Dan Hill. So this is where Courtney Nelson is going to be very happy to see, because Courtney Nelson could really use this to his advantage. Dan Hill braking way too late, getting a little bit scared of Mike Watts and able to hold on just barely in front of Courtney Nelson. Nelson in the freaky fast machine. Jimmy Johns is going to be really, really expecting to take that place away. Unfortunately, the door closed up much quicker than he expected. Cameron Shosey down pit road. It's going to be winning these drivers. Interestingly enough, it looks like these drivers have decided that tires are far more important than fuel. And drivers not too happy to stay out there as long as possible. Coming down very, very early. Gonna have to see if that is really the strategy call right now. Ogle is making up quite a considerable chunk of time with Josh Robinson. Both drivers have come down pit road, and they are only in the 6th and 7th positions, as this front pack really made a statement out here at the front. Michael Watts already getting on the back bumper and pressuring Dwayne MacArthur. This 84 machine gonna have to pass through tech inspection something quick, because we are really wondering what is under the hood of that thing. Alan Wanamaker, you can see coming out of pit road, he's going to be careful letting the leaders go through. Great awareness from Alan Wanamaker to allow Dan Hill and Courtney Nelson through there before coming out of pit road. MacArthur still under pressure, and boy would he be feeling it from Michael Watts right now. '83 in the 84 machine. Bass Pro Shops versus Lowe's. Michael Watts versus Dwayne MacArthur. I said their names the wrong way around, but that is okay, as the Canadian is trying desperately to hold off the fast American here. Dwayne MacArthur using all of the available space. Mike Watts still has room on both sides of his machine going into the S's, and still somehow putting down phenomenal laps as he gets ready to take over the lead, and does so. Dwayne MacArthur's going to try and fire back a little bit more speed out of that machine on the exit, but it wasn't quite enough, as Mike Watts has taken that position away, and he's going to be sitting pretty up in the first spot right now. So Mike Watts from the back to the front in 25 laps Absolutely phenomenal driving from that 84 machine. It cannot be understated just how difficult that is, not only as per normal, but also with the field of cars that we have right now. It looks like Mark Fish had a problem. A little bit while we were focusing on that battle for the lead. Oh, what has just... That was a KO move. What happened there? I believe that was Dean Gear. Absolutely flying. Just could not turn the car. Just bang. Oh, as we get too loud up here in the booth, but wow. That was brutal. Wayne MacArthur and Courtney Nelson both coming down pit road. Deciding to split this one almost perfectly in half. Ed Brown, holy flying cars. That is a Sonoma specialty. As definitely the hill entering turn one has provided us with quite a spectacle, I would say. As Mike Watts is going to have to be careful going around Brian Lynch just there. It looks like Robert Garisco has gone for a little bit of an alternative line through the dirt and almost gets pummeled. Hang on a minute. That was Dan Hill. So Dan Hill involved in that one, getting a little bit of damage to his front end. He's not going to be happy about that as he comes down pit road. And Michael Watts continues to stay out here. Oh no, maybe staying out a bit too long as he goes out wide, has a little bit of a spin, but checks it up pretty well. Able to get pointed back in the right direction. Pushing these tires a little bit harder than necessary. And it absolutely seems to be the name of the game. Tires playing a bigger factor here than fuel, as we have seen in quite a few series past. Sonoma, just such a hot track, so difficult. His tires getting abused so much over all of these curbs. Mike Watts with a 24-second gap over Josh Robinson, who, remember, has been down pit road. Only two drivers in the top five have not, including Michael Watts and Daryl Winiger. Watts coming down pit road now. As he makes his way down the pit entrance ramp. See if Daryl Winiger will make his way down as well. Now Mike Watts has come down, which means he will hand the lead over to Josh Robinson. Robinson and Ogle, though, both of those drivers came down very, very early. So we're going to have to keep an eye just how close Watts is to them as well. As Watts has just entered his actual box, a very long pit road here at Sonoma. Especially when he's right on the exit coming up behind Robinson, behind Ogle. But beating MacArthur out, funnily enough. So very happy he's going to be to see that one unfold in his favour. As Bruce Pearson there, you can see just letting Dwayne MacArthur by. A lot of this track, very, very tight racing. Very hard to let drivers by. Have some good battles can form, though, from how tight this track is at points. If you are comfortable going too wide with your fellow driver, you better prepare to do so, as Dan Hill is right on the back bumper of Wayne Hufford. Dan Hill losing quite a number of positions at the moment. Wayne Hufford, Daryl Winiger just in front. Both those drivers have yet to pit, so he should be in the top five once the pit cycles are done through. But the question is, Will Dan Hill have to pit a second time? Dave Brown asking the question. Ogle went in early. Will he have to come in again? On fuel, no. But on tyres, that's going to be very interesting, as we actually hinted at 3 wide there. It looks like we did go 3 wide for just a second with Wayne Hufford and Bruce Pearson. It looks like Courtney Nelson has taken over the 9th place spot from Greg McDaniel as well. I would say out of that pit cycle, Courtney Nelson may have been the one that's been hurting the most. Lloyd Moore, we've got on a showing has crashed on our live timing software. Let's get that one queued up for you. Have a quick look at this one. Lloyd Moore maybe missing his braking zone just a bit too much. Just a little bit of a knock to the front left there. Hopefully not affecting his suspension or steering rack too much. As, oh no, commentator's curse striking for the first time tonight. Courtney Nelson just got a report that he had a little bit of a crash as well. Have to see what this one was like, because we just saw him coming over the hill, and it looks like, yeah, just sending it in a little bit too deep. McDaniel able to get around without too much of a hassle. And Courtney Nelson continuing on just next to Alan Wanamaker there, who is a lap down from the number 30 machine. But Sonoma, a very, very difficult track. A very, very fun track, it must be said. Not only to watch, but also to be a part of. These drivers may be having a lot of difficulty, but I'm sure having a lot of fun as well. As Ogle, it looks like, is closing the door to Josh Robinson just ahead. And look who's lurking just behind the lap down car. That is Mike Watts. And you know that he'll be thinking he has to work his way through the front pack as quickly as possible. I say the front pack, the first 2 drivers of Robinson and Ogle. But this is a definitely dominated Ford track at the moment. These Ford Mustangs making up the top 3 spots. Wayne MacArthur, your top Toyota, in 4th, with Darrell Winiger right now in the top Chevrolet, with Dan Hill just behind in another one for the 5th and 6th positions. Fastest lap of the race once again. Michael Watts actually almost beating the 116 times as well, getting a 116 flat, as opposed to Josh Robinson and Tom Ogle's 116.6 and 116.4 respectively. 116.84, excuse me, respectively. So over half a second quicker than these front 2 drivers. Watts is absolutely flying. And you can see how quickly he's closed that gap to Ogle just in front. Jeremy Mayo, Dustin Martinson, Dave Brown, James Waldo, always a very happy man I am to see you all. Victory Lane Motorsports is in there, and I know that is as well. Unfortunately not able to join us, Victor Lane, here tonight, it looks like, so that is a little bit sad, I must say. But it's great to see him at least joining us in the spectator area, even if he cannot be on track. These guys all looking like they're having fun in the spectator area. So that is good to see, especially Jeremy Mayo saying that Watts is approaching. We've got to cue the Jaws music. And I think that is about right. However, he has fallen back quite a bit right now to Tom Ogle. Lloyd Moore just ahead, not going as wide as Mike Watts would have wanted him to just there. So Watts not going to be incredibly happy with that performance, but gets around him without too much issue regardless. Jim Smith, Mark Schrader, Dean Gear, Mark Fish, and John Hastings all down pit road. Fish, Gear, and Hastings down for very extended stays. See, Moore has just made his way down pit road. Brian Lynch is coming in as well. Oh no, that wasn't Moore. That was Brian Lynch. Lloyd Moore with a little bit of a lockup, almost getting into the front bumper of Dwayne MacArthur. That was very, very close indeed. As a lot of these drivers, you can tell they are very much struggling for grip all over the track. And, you know, Michael Watts has got to be thinking to himself at this point, Josh Robinson and Tom Ogle can stay out the entire rest of the way, but will they? Coming in as early as they did signifies, at least to me up here in the booth, that they are not super comfortable with the fall off on those tires. But at this point in the race, it would very much benefit them to stay out as long as possible and make it to the end. However, the question has to remain, Mike Watts, will he be able to make his way through? As Ogle became the second driver this race so far oh no, Robinson was the second driver to crack 16.5s. Ben MacArthur and Tom Ogle also have cracked 16.5. Dan Hill as well, so really, you can take what I just said, pretty much that whole sentence, with a grain of salt, as I clearly don't know what I'm talking about. With Tom Ogle still right behind Josh Robinson. Remember, these two are Team Miata teammates, so they will not be pushing the issue against each other too much. Victor Lane saying he'll be back next Sunday. Well, unfortunately for you, Victor, we have an off week next Sunday, so being back is not entirely going to work out in your favor, but we will see you back the weekend afterwards. I am sure of that, as Brian Lindsay letting these drivers go through, perhaps having a little bit of an issue, as it did say that Brian Lindsay crashed. We're going to assume that Lindsay just pulled off to the side to let these drivers go by, though, and don't have to put Lindsay on blast any more than we already have. Michael Watts has been closing the gap steadily, as Jonathan Thier now has had some issues. He is way off the track, as it looks like he's just let, I believe that's Lee Warsdale, go past. Yes, it is. Not on the same lap, so that was not for position, but we're going to have a quick look at what happened to Jonathan Thier. Looks like just a little bit too much power, and keeps it off the wall, I believe. No, just a little bit of a love tap, but still, fantastic job from him to get that one dialed back as much as he did. Michael Watts toying with the idea of getting a 1:15 lap once again, clicking off the fastest lap yet again. A full 600ths quicker than his fastest lap so far, with a 1:16.02. So just not able to click off the 1:15s, as Robinson had a little bit of a lockup earlier on, so that's allowing Ogle and Watts to catch up a little bit. Now Robinson and Ogle, even though these two are teammates up in the top two spots, they certainly do not have any love lost for each other, as they love working together, but they will race each other to the line if push comes to shove. We've seen that in the past. It should be interesting to see if they can get together, but right now Michael Watts is putting all of the pressure on Tom Ogle just ahead as they work their way up into turn one. Ogle pushing way too wide, gets a little bit off the track, and that is allowing Michael Watts to make that move. Watts applying pressure exactly as needed. Michael Watts, will he be able to catch up to Josh Robinson in 14 laps? Robinson, the most amount of wins this season by a considerable margin. 6 wins plus the All-Star victory. As he makes his way through lap traffic, Chris Bates is going to have to let him on by. Chris Bates takes the inside line. That's not what Josh Robinson's going to want to see. Backs off incredibly to allow Robinson to cut back if necessary. Robinson can't do it, but that slowed Watts right down. Watts is not going to be happy to see it, but I guess what comes around goes around. It's all fair in love and war as both drivers got held up in ways they didn't want to be. And we are showing Jim Smith now. I believe that may have been the crash that we actually saw before, but we are showing Alan Wanamaker just below it on our timing software having his own issues. And again, into that hairpin. People seeming to not figure out that corner quite as well as they want to be, and just a solo car spin on exit. Cameron Shosi doing a great job of avoiding Wanamaker as he got back underway. As these drivers pulling over to the side, letting the top group go. And we're going to ride on the gearbox of Robinson. And we're going to see just how close that gap, or just how quickly it closes with Mike Watts. And look, just on into the corner. Watts just gets so much time on Josh Robinson ahead. Using his pace under braking more than anything else right now. As he just closes the gap amazingly quickly. A little bit of loose from Josh Robinson. I heard that as the tires were spinning just a little bit. Mike Watts going to be very pleased to see that that is occurring. As Mike Watts does have quite fresher tires as well. Question is he going to just wait for the right time to pounce? A little bit of a mistake out of Robinson. Or is he actually going to try and force the move? Robinson locks up the fronts once again. Those tires are going to be screaming at Robinson right now. As you can see, Watts just behind is biding his time. Mike Watts does make it into the 1:15 club. The only driver to do so that last lap by a 1:15.8. A full second and a tenth faster than Josh Robinson last time by. So we're going to have to keep watching with bated breath as to how this one works out as the final laps come underway with 11 laps to go here. Josh Robinson is going to have some lap traffic just ahead. That is Cameron Shosi in a very, very nicely colored Taco Bell sponsored machine. Shosi jumping out of the way for Robinson and Watts. As Robinson and Watts continue to have this mega fight up front, everyone else fairly spread out right now. A couple seconds between each driver out on track. Aside from these front two, really whittling it down right now. As you can see, making the move, it looks like Michael Watts definitely diving in, just showing Robinson, hey, look, it's me. You better get going, son. As Robinson is driving his wheels off right now. That 23 machine. Lap traffic is going to be right in front. That is going to be the triple number driver of Jim Smith. He's going to stay in front of these two for the moment. This is definitely not going to be what these leaders want to see. As Watts is once again just showing the nose. And really what this has allowed is it's allowed Tom Ogle to catch up, and there they go. Drag race down to the corner. Very heavy braking zone. Mike Watts does take the position away. We'll have a little bit of a worse drive on exit. Josh Robinson catches right up to the back bumper, but it's not going to be enough as Michael Watts has taken that position away now. Greg McDaniel down pit road. Robert Crisco Garisco in a very bad spot for Josh Robinson. And a perfect position for Mike Watts, who is able to extend that gap due to that car being in the way. There is actually a drag strip, just referencing our drag race earlier on between Robinson and Watts down the back straight. Just before the S's, there is actually a drag strip in the middle of Sonoma, right next to the start-finish straight, all the way to the other side of the circuit. And we may actually see some drivers decide to have some fun and go there after the race ends and have a little bit of a drag race themselves. But for now, we are still looking at Josh Robinson with Tom Ogle not too far behind, and Michael Watts has just left. There goes the gap. You can see there, 1.8 seconds. Michael Watts to Josh Robinson and Tom Ogle. About a second behind Robinson now. Robinson locking up the brakes. Mike Watts has a bit of an issue. What happened there? As that certainly seemed interesting. Just missing his braking point. Just getting a little bit too crazy out here. That is definitely something that Josh Robinson wants to see more of. And up here in the booth, making us bite our nails in anticipation for what's to come. Cameron Shosi, as I make my first mistake of that name in the night. I apologize to Shosi once again, as he made a dive on Garisco and way too much throttle. Way too little braking, way too much throttle. You choose which one. Almost getting into Dwayne MacArthur there as well on exit. And it looks like Cameron Shosi had more issues after that and had to jump back on track, as well as Greg McDaniel, who has just been announced as crashing himself right in front of the leaders. You saw him just for a minute there having his own issues. Sonoma is taking all of these cars out of the running big time. Bang. See just a little bit of a love tap to the wall there. Gonna have a look and see what happened to Shosi, as he's already off by the time that I'm looking at that one. So we'll try and back that one up as quickly as we can. Just a little bit too deep once again. So his brakes would have been, his tires, excuse me, would have been very hot from his earlier brake test, I guess, with the wall. Just that same lap. And Greg McDaniel also having his issues as well, as we did see that issue, but this was just before his accident. So once again, these drivers really struggling with this track, and you know, once they have a little bit of a bobble, a little bit of a lockup of the tires, or going off track a little bit, there's going to be dirt on that rubber. There's going to be maybe a few flat spots if they've been really on the brakes quite hard, locking them up. They're going to have all sorts of issues, really heating up the tires as well. That is going to mean it is going to be very easy in a couple of corners from their initial incident to follow up with another one. So Watts is actually losing the battle a little bit in terms of time to Josh Robinson, who is actually quite a bit faster than Mike Watts. And you almost have to wonder if Watts has used up just too much in terms of grip, in terms of talent, trying to outpace Josh Robinson and Tom Ogle. Maybe a little bit of damage from when he broke into the corner way too far. Maybe hit the wall just a tad bit and we didn't catch it on camera. As Jim Smith now goes off track and has an accident. Sonoma just keeps on keeping on with the accidents. And it is at that same very high uphill left right hand corner mini chicane there. And it looks like he has just had a little bit of a solo spin himself. Not too much in the way of bad things happening. Your top 5 so far: Michael Watts, Josh Robinson, Tom Ogle, Dwayne MacArthur, and Dan Hill. Really, of that front 5 or 6 that we saw, of the front 6 that we saw very early on in this race, Courtney Nelson is the one that has been left stranded. He is down in the 7th position. Not exactly far off from the top 6, of course, but in terms of timing, he has fallen down quite a considerable ways. As you can see just then, once again, Michael Watts just getting way too deep into the corner and missing the apex entirely, allowing Josh Robinson, who's picked up his game, to close that gap back down again to less than half a second now. So we're on board right now with Robinson. Oh, Robinson sounded like he just hit a little bit of the wall just there. Bit of issues further up front. You can see there. Oh, Greg McDaniel, as well as Lee Warsdale. I believe that may have been... No, that wasn't Lee Warsdale. Brian Lynch. That's who that was. With Greg McDaniel. Gonna have to see how this one unfolded. As Lynch goes for a ride, smack bang. Way too far inside of that corner. And Greg McDaniel with the follow through. As he undeniably had quite a lot of panic coming up towards that incident. So just staying a little bit off track, but able to get it dialed in once again as Robinson continues to hunt down Michael Watts up front. Tom Ogle coming down pit road. There's a very interesting strategy. What has happened to Tom Ogle? Dan Hill has crashed. Losing my voice up here in the booth as what is happening. 3 laps left to go. Dan Hill, one of our front runners in the top 5. Oh, thankfully avoiding an actual accident. Yes. Just having a bit of a solo spin. What happened to Tom Ogle? Went off track. Oh no. Our 3rd place driver having all sorts of mayhem. What happened here? Just behind his teammate, Josh Robinson. Collects a lot of curb and just sends it around straight into the wall. Oh, that is absolutely brutal. So he's actually done and out. What is going on? Dwayne MacArthur all of a sudden finds himself in 3rd. Dan Hill, even after having that little bit of a spin, still finds himself in the 4th position. And Daryl Winiger somehow able to hold on to 5th right now. After not even stopping in this race. Daryl Winiger showing that he hasn't even made a stop, as well as Bruce Pearson. But Bruce a little bit further back in the pack. Daryl Winiger's in the top 5. Those tires must be absolutely aching to be changed. Daryl Winiger is going to run this one out without fueling at all, I believe, as well. We thought it could be done, but it was going to be very, very close. Daryl Winiger, amazingly, I still cannot believe that he has not come down pit road at all this entire race and is still managing to be in the top 5 spots. I mean, that is phenomenal. Speaking of phenomenal, Michael Watts still in the lead as Josh Robinson trying desperately to catch up as quickly as he can. But I'm not sure he's going to be able to do so. As we're coming to the end of this one, you can see just how close Michael Watts is on the exit and throughout the corner, I should say, of that hairpin as we get the white flag signaling 1 to go. Michael Watts is going to have that just over a second advantage over Josh Robinson. Robinson has a whole bunch of track behind him before we get to Dwayne MacArthur, 11 seconds behind. But he is not going to be thinking about that at all. He's going to be thinking he wants to get that top spot. But I'm not sure Michael Watts is going to let him have it as they head into the back part of the circuit. As Michael Watts has a little bit of a lockup. We saw just a tiny puff of smoke out of that machine, but able to keep it going in the right direction. No issues or worries. As really Michael Watts right now, you can see, has slowed the pace down just a tad, trying to get that car home in one piece. Robinson has got the hammer down though, not wanting to relent any sort of time. But I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's going to be too little too late as they come to the final corner. Michael Watts has to make it count and does so without too much stress. And he is going to take home the checkered flag here tonight. Michael Watts with our first place here at Sonoma. Josh Robinson rounding it home just behind in second. And Dwayne MacArthur probably not expecting a third here tonight, but definitely been given one after Ogle had his incidents. So these drivers, man oh man. Phenomenal stuff from these guys. As a U does not sound like an O, I've got to remind myself of that. And we had a fantastic race here tonight. That was about as action-packed a race course in terms of a racing circuit in a NASCAR race that I think I've ever seen. Drivers going all over every which way, but in the majority of cases only having solo incidents, not too much being involved in terms of disagreements. So that is always fantastic to see. I will bring up the results for you in just a split second so you can see exactly, if you can already see on the unofficial results board there, but I'll bring them up for you anyway because it looks a little bit better. If I hit you with this, there we go. And you can see right there, Michael Watts, Josh Robinson, and Dwayne MacArthur taking home the top 3 spots, with Dan Hill, Daryl Winiger not pitting at all, ending up in the 5th position with Courtney Nelson, Wayne Hufford, Tom Ogle, Jonathan Thea, and Lloyd Moore. I believe they're supposed to stop for a little bit of a photo just at the finish line. Dwayne MacArthur not wanting to stop at all, as Michael Watts burning it down here at Sonoma. And I will take a little bit of a break from talking just for a tad so I can scroll through the results for you as we get ready for interviews here tonight. All right, as we await our drivers coming into the broadcast booth, we have to once again thank everyone for tuning in and turning up in the spectator area. We couldn't do it without you, including having as much fun as I do calling the races for you from here in Aussie land. And I very much appreciate you all joining us in the spectator area once again. This is the Old Bastards Racing League, brought to you by the Kimball Cup. Well, it is the Kimball Cup series, brought to you by Kimball, I should say. And broadcasted by Team Goon Squatters. We've got Dwayne MacArthur in our waiting room. Mike Watts joining him, and Josh Robinson, interestingly enough, is going to be the final driver that will join us. Usually is that way, as he has done. So we're going to bring up Dwayne MacArthur into the booth. Dwayne, welcome to the booth, finishing in third position. How are you feeling after that one?
I feel good. A little tired. It was a busy track, but I feel good. Third on a road course. I'll take that.
Yeah, now let us know just what was going through your head. If you heard over, I'm not sure if there was anything on the driver radio, I assume there was though, of Tom Ogle having that incident allowing you to take home that third place spot.
Yeah, I didn't even really notice. I was just driving, but he got on the radio and let me know that he gifted me one there. So, yeah, he was probably gonna bring that home. So it was nice of Tom to give me an early Christmas present.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with him on that one. I have a feeling that he didn't deliberately do it, but that's neither here nor there. Um, Dwayne, we saw you having a very good run earlier on. You decided to pit a little bit later than some of these other drivers. Not Michael Watts, but definitely later than Ogle and Robinson. Did that impact you, making you end up in that fourth position and struggling to get back up to the top three?
Yeah, I definitely blew the pit strategy and pit execution. Um, I should have went in before I caught the traffic, and I was kind of trying to save tires and maybe make it on fuel. I was only about a lap short, and I was monkeying around with that for way too long, even after Josh went in, and I kind of backed the pace down a little bit. I thought maybe I could make it. I was indecisive, and then I was really bad on pit road trying to get my fuel set, and lost a ton of time and really never got it back.
All right, well, Dwayne, you know what? We see you up here in the booth quite regularly, so certainly nothing to sneeze at. Third place is a very, very good time indeed. So, before I let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to for this third place here tonight?
Yeah, just a shout out to our sponsors, Kimball, Victory Lane Sports, IO Logs, Butt Kicker, Admin Box, and a big shout out to Team Goon Squad, of course. Thanks to all the admins, all the bastards coming out, and that's about it.
All right, sounds good, Dwayne. Well, we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time, as next week we do have the week off. So, enjoy your week off, and we will see you in 2 weeks, Dwayne.
Copy that. See you there. Thanks.
That was Dwayne MacArthur bringing it home in the third place position. Up next, Josh Robinson, a man we're used to seeing in the top spot, but it didn't look like he was able to hold off Mike Watts quite this time. What is going on, Josh Robinson?
Hey Gareth, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. The question is, how are you doing tonight?
Exhausted. It might look like we're just driving, but whew, that is feels about 800 degrees in here right now.
Well, I tell you what, I have to ask the question. Oh man, I've straight away forgotten as soon as I was about to open my mouth. But all right, I'll ask this question instead. What was the decision to come down pit road so early? Like, what was
It
the
was
strategy on that? I should say. Man, I'm losing the
it
plot right now.
it was a spur of the moment. I had told myself during the race that depending on how I was running, depending on how traffic was going, I would shoot the gap into the pits, and we came out of that corner and we had some lap traffic that we were going to be working through, and Dwayne was running really good, and he and I were just felt like equal, and I was like, well, I'm not going to pass him on the track, so if I want to pass him, it's going to have to be in the pits. And so kind of bamboozled him a little bit by going in there, because I mean, that's a strange time to pit, but I threw it in there, had a decent pit stop, and worked out pretty well.
Well, it seemed to work in your favor and Ogle's as well before he had his own little mishap. But yeah, I will say at the end there, you were catching up to Mike Watts. I'm not sure if he let off and maybe let you catch up a little bit there at the end, or if he used up too much stuff, or maybe it was just you feeling more confident after running for so long.
You know, one of the funny things at a road course is if you're the one leading the pack into the corner, you gotta hit your mark perfectly. You have nothing else to judge off of than other than what you know and where to brake. And so, you know, when Watts got by me and I was behind him, I had a reference point, so it was a little bit easier to turn some good laps.
Well, that's actually a very good point. I've never even really thought about that. Yeah, that definitely could help. As we saw, Michael Watts did have a few issues there once he got to the lead as well. He was missing his braking points. So, were you? I've got to ask. I'm sure you were a little bit excited to see when he missed a couple of those, thinking, "Oh, maybe I can just slide my way up to the front."
You know, we all had a couple of those moments, and I going into number 11 there, the hairpin, he got in a little deep, but it really didn't cost him that much time because he's really good at these road courses. He's super smooth, and when he missed that corner, he knows that you can't make that time back, so he just took his medicine. He got right back to going, and he turned a really good lap the next time by. So it you never want to see someone mess up, but that's part of racing is you got to take advantage of those things. But his mess ups were so subtle that it was still faster.
All right, Josh. Well, it's been great talking to you. I do have to let you go, but before I do so, who you got to give a shout out to for this second place finish here at Sonoma tonight?
Yeah, shout out to everyone that showed up. I think we had nearly 30 car field for a road course. That's awesome for a league that is predominantly asphalt oval. Shout out to Mike Watts. He started in the back and came up and won this thing. That's impressive. Then just shout out to the league sponsors, AI Logs, Victor Lane Sports, and Kimball. Couldn't do it without them. And shout out to the league for putting on and all the admins. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, sounds good, Josh. Well, you have the most wins this season, and I'm sure we'll continue to see you up in the booth, whether it's in victory lane or in the top three spots. I'm sure we'll see you here again in short order. So enjoy the off week next week.
Appreciate it, Gareth. Have a good night.
All right, you too. So that was Josh Robinson bringing it home in the second place position. Finally, and certainly the man, the myth, the legend has to be said. Mike Watts up front. What is going on? Tell us how you're feeling, and just yeah, let's just start from there.
Yeah, Gareth, this Ricochet Racing prepared Lowe's Mustang just handled beautifully today. I could really toss it around the track. It did great in qualifying. We had some really great pit decisions and made a good stop. Um, yeah, the thing I was worried most about was overcoming that penalty and having to race all the way from the back. And I made my way through there pretty good. And it was really good racing all day today, I think.
Yeah, well, Watts, we have to talk about a couple of things. I mean, I just have to talk about a couple of things. Number one, like you mentioned, starting all the way, well, certainly qualifying on pole, then starting all the way at the back with that EOL and making your way back up to the front in about half the laps of the entire race. I mean, that must have. Did you even notice that you were passing all those cars, or were you just so focused on doing what you're doing that you didn't even realize that you'd passed so many?
Uh, yeah, I kind of didn't realize. I mean, there was 29 cars out there today. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, that's a large field, and there was a lot of cars to get by. And the only thing I could think about was getting to the front, getting to the leaders, and being able to maintain pace with them. And I got to like a point where I cleared some cars, and they were 10 seconds ahead, and I just kept digging, and we just didn't give up, and that was the difference, I guess. We were able to close in on them, and they started pitting, and I probably should have stayed out a little bit longer, but I came in and pitted, and that put Team Miata, Josh and Ogle, those guys are good and fast too, in front of me. So then I had to get back by them, and that was tough. It was a race because those are very talented drivers. So
Yeah, well, I tell you what, we were looking at the timing sheet, and you are the only driver in the entire field that actually cracked 1 minute 15 seconds per lap time. I mean, that's got to feel good, and that is a real example of just how fast you were around here. But you're right, when Josh passed you, I was a little worried. I was wondering if you were going to be able to make up that time, but you certainly did. And then when you got up front, you started really getting away from him and then made a couple of mistakes. He caught back up to you. That must have felt absolutely terrifying.
yeah, well, I mean, I was still comfortable, so I was trying to save my tires because I know I'd melted them, practically melted them getting up to that point. So at that point, I was just trying to take care of the car and maintain the gap. But yeah, Josh would get small in my mirror, and then you get big in my mirror, and then you get small in my mirror, and it was a little stressful going to some of the braking zones, because I kind of snuck by him, when he was getting around the lap car, and uh, so I was just waiting for myself to actually make a mistake and let him back by. That guy, I mean, he is just a winning machine. So really, really fortunate to pull the win away today.
But I tell you what, they talk about a road course ringer typically in NASCAR, and you're not even that, I would say, because you hold your own on a lot of these ovals as well. But I will say, it's got to feel fantastic. This is the very first win in the Cup Series this season.
Yes, yeah, for this season, I think last year I won a few ovals, and maybe a couple road courses. I don't know, but yeah, I've been trying to improve my racecraft on ovals and get better at ovals, and um, I think some pit strategy last year helped me out on the ovals. But yeah, just learning from these guys and racing with these guys just make you better all around, and my background in open wheel and road racing just helps me out when we get to these tracks. So I have to make the most of it because we've only got like I think 3 road course races in the Cup Series here. So if I have a shot to win, because like I said, Josh is a winning machine. If you don't put one on the board, he's going to take it from you.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have to let you go, Michael. We saw a fantastic burnout out of you at the end there as well, by the way. Just a great smoke show on the camera. But before I let you go, who would you like to shout out to? Your first win this season in the Kimball Cup. It's got to feel good.
Oh yeah, I want to shout out to the admins, OBRL, for making this all happen and putting on a great league, a great show, great drivers. I want to thank my wife and my family for allowing me to do this. So it's a great hobby, and I recommend a lot of people do this because it's safer and cheaper than racing the real cars. So um, I just highly recommend it.
All right. Sounds good, Michael. We will catch you later. Enjoy as much as you can, especially this off week. You're going to have to enjoy for 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, fortunately. And I took my vacation and coinciding with the NASCAR and the OBRL off week. So, um, yeah, we'll look forward to our next race at Nashville and on down the road. So, it's good to get one on the board and, put us in playoff contention. So, we just got to keep digging and maybe we can dig ourselves out of the hole and the points that we put ourselves in. So, um, look forward to seeing y'all next time in Nashville.
Sounds good, Mike. We'll see you there.
Yes, thank you, Gareth. Have a good day.
Too. All right, that was Michael Watts bringing it home in the top spot and in amazing fashion at that. We will let you go, but before we do, on behalf of Team Goon Squad and myself, Gareth McAllister is my name. bringing you the action as much as I can in the best way that I know how to, alongside with the Old Bastards Racing League and the Kimball Cup Series. Very thankful to all the admins and all the spectators out in the spectator area, letting me know what's happening on track if I miss something, or just enjoying the fun with me. Even if you don't chat, it has been absolutely a pleasure to have you alongside me enjoying the race with me up here in the booth. So I will let you all go. Have a fantastic night. We have an off week coming into next weekend, but don't miss in 2 weeks Nashville Super Speedway to kick it back off, and we will see you then after that. Have a fantastic night, and we'll see you then.